Hello everybody, Sunday again. Welcome back to our Biology Sunday. IBDP 2025 syllabus complete looks. We are on A4.1. A4 already. Evolution and speciation, SL and HL. We are now on unity and diversity in ecosystem. Bigger and bigger, remember. Organism now your ecosystem, okay. And the first part we talk about is Darwin's evolution. Before Darwin's evolution, you must know there's a background. Lamarck has another concept of evolution. Lamarck said that before Darwin, the physical change in organism during the lifetime can be passed to the offspring. It is very strange to us nowadays, right? But at that time, it is someone has this idea also. But it is different from Darwin's point of view. Darwin thinks that evolution is the accumulative change in the heritable characteristic of a population. The main point is what is a heritable characteristic? But by Darwin's idea, this thing is inside the gene already. We are coming from the same ancestor. So by the first ancestor, all the genes are there already, and then evolution come from the delivery of these genes from the same ancestor to us. So from Darwin's point of view, why different organism has different expression is that it is the expression of the genes. And by Darwin's point of view, the acquired characteristic is later on. It cannot included and he cannot transfer it to next generation. For example, you do exercise, you become strong, your genes doesn't change. And the theory of evolution is by natural selection. And this kind of theory predicts and explains a broad range of observation. And it's unlikely to be falsified, but you learn TOK, right? I teach TOK too. But the concept of TOK, natural nature of science has a property of a foreseeable. It can fallible. It can be proved wrong. So we can never prove a theory that is correct, even though this theory is so well explained in all the observation. So we can just say it is still a theory, not proven yet, and I'm sure not proven wrong yet. Okay. And then for the natural selection, there are three kinds of natural selection. For the first one is more natural. This natural selection we call it stabilizing selection. And then for the phenotype means something observable difference. For example, height, mass, arm length, leg length, or anything that is observable for an organism. For group population of organism, we call it phenotypes. Frequency of occurrence, of course, a normal should be a normal distribution has a peak. Why? Because this is a stabilizing selection. It said that the phenotype in the middle is favorable. For example, if a child gives birth, too little or too big is hard to raise. The medium weight is the best one, so it is a stabilizing selection, and then eventually by natural selection, the peak will getting a there will be a sharp peak in the middle. You can call it a stabilizing selection. And the other one is a directional selection. It is directed or biased to one side, one extreme end. That extreme end is favorable by the environment. For example, a giraffe. A long leg giraffe is favorable, so it will shift to the right. So the long leg one. To one side, we call it a directional selection. One end of the phenotype, one extreme end of the phenotype is favorable. And the other, we call it a disruptive selection. Both the two extreme ends are favorable. In between is not. And then there's a famous example is hummingbirds. Either they have a very short beak or very long beak are favorable. Medium size, oh no, is unfavorable and it will be discarded. We call it a disruptive selection. So remember these three kinds of selection. In examination, they will tell you what is that kind of selection and you have to understand what does it mean. Both are natural selection. Summary. Okay, type of natural selection. Okay, we have to think about two things. Okay, in favor of and eliminate. Okay, they are complementary. Okay, for the stabilizing selection, the intermediate form is a favor. So both the extreme form will be eliminated. For the directional selection, one extreme form, tall leg of giraffe. Remember, tall one. That extreme form is favorable. So the intermediate form and the opposite extreme form are eliminated. For the disruptive selection, both extreme forms are favorable, so the intermediate form will be eliminated. And you need to remember, for each of them, you need to remember one example. Stabilizing is everything. Really, okay, easy to find. Directional giraffe, okay. Disruptive, I'm sorry, hummingbirds, okay. Medium bit is eliminated. And then a microscopic evidence of evolution. Now we want to look for the concept of evolution. We have a common ancestor. We can't find that one yet, okay, but can we find some evidence? Yes, okay, because on the earth there are different creatures and lots of creatures, but we share a high percentage of DNA and RNA. Extraordinarily, amazingly more. For example, human beings and plants and animals are completely different, right? For the phenotype, right? But we share half of our DNA. Wow, this high percentage of common DNA is a powerful evidence of common ancestry. And through this evolution process, okay, we becomes so different species. And also we share the same amino acid. Okay, you know amino acids joined together from the protein. Protein is the dominant function of creatures. Okay, so different creatures should have different protein. Different protein is made of different amino acids. Right? But actually, all the creatures on the earth share the 20 amino acids. Rare case is the 21st one. Okay, most of us share both to turn the amino acids to make the different protein. So this is a common amino acids is another powerful evidence of common ancestry. Next is evidence is human man-made something we call it selective breeding. Selective breeding is human-made thing. Okay, but through selective breeding, okay, we domesticate animals and make some crops plants that is favorable for us. Okay, this is selective breeding. It is through crossing selected varieties. Okay, the desirable variety are retained while the undesirable variety are eliminated. We do it up generation by generation by generation, and eventually new species will come out with the characteristic favorable to human beings for us, okay, because this is human made. By this process, selective breeding, it is an example showing that natural selection is possible. Human did some already. For example, selective breeding produces crop plants and livestock, a favorable characteristic to humanity. For example, wheat higher yield, okay, cow producing more milk, and chicken laying larger eggs, okay. And also the selective breeding is about domesticate animals. Do you know how long does it take to domesticate the cutie dog? 20,000 years. Okay, very long time. And it is changed from the wolf to the dog, and then the dog is less aggressive and dangerous to us. Okay, so we can make friends with them. Okay. And IBDP, when you talk about favorable, desirable, and advantageous variables, are the same. Same. Good. But don't say good. Okay. Too simple. Favorable, desirable, and advantageous varieties. And the other evidence is homologous structures. Okay. For example, this pentadeck limbs. Okay. Birds, turtles, frogs, whales, horse, and humans, we share the same pentadeck limbs. Although different looking, but the structure are fairly extremely similar. We call it homologous structure. So we trust that these structures come from the same ancestry, not by adaptation only. Okay, come from the same ancestry. So it is an evidence. Okay, but it is where does it come from? We trust that it is come from the primitive fish. Okay, primitive fish. But funny thing is that the modern fish fin that does not have this pentadecate limb. Okay, so modern fish fin does not come from ancestor, this ancient fish. Very funny. Of course, there's another opposite example. Okay, this is you can say a similar parts are in a different shade. Okay, the sequence are clear. Okay, dark, light, and then medium gray. Okay, so homologous pentadecate limbs is an evidence of common ancestry of vertebrates. It's also an evidence of evolution. Very clear. And of course, also for the wing, okay, the bird's wing, the bat's wing, and the dinosaur's wings are completely different looking. But look at the limbs; they are very similar, very similar. The homologous structure are here, and the opposite is very opposite too. For example, the insect, although still very similar, but they are not pentadecate limbs, okay. And also the insect wing is not the bird's wing, the bat's wing, and pentadecate. So we trust that insect come from different homologous, different ancestry than other than not the same as the vertebrates. Okay. So we can use this concept homologous structure to group things together and to separate things. Okay, with common ancestry and without common ancestry. Insect and vertebrates do not have a homologous structure. The insect and vertebrate legs, okay, are not homologous. Okay, so modern fish fin and other vertebrate fin are not homologous also. So modern fish are different, have different ancestry than us. Okay. We have a concept called convergent evolution. Actually, two concepts. One is convergent evolution, one is divergent evolution. It is quite complicated concept. First of all, understand them first. Convergent evolution is some not genetically closely related species, but they evolve out similar trail, and we call it a convergent evolution. And it is a result of the same adaptation to similar environment. And the divergent evolution is the opposite. Okay, divergent evolution is the genetically closely related species, but evolving out different traits because adaptation to different environments. So it shows the environment's effect on evolution. So you can think about convergent evolution. How to remember it? Converge means join together. So before they are separate, they are genetically different. Okay, they are coming from different ancestry, but because of similar environment, so they converge to similar features, phenotype, that you might think they have a genetically correlated, but actually they are not, and we call it a convergent evolution. For example, viruses, you think viruses are all looking very similar, but actually they are not. Okay, they come from different ancestry, but because of the same environment, they evolve very similar feature, phenotype. And on the contrary, even something they are very divergent from your point of view. Okay? They have different phenotype, okay, but they come from the same ancestry because of divergent evolution, because of separation, because of speciation, though they have adaptation to different environments. That's it, okay. So remember, same looking might be different ancestry by convergent evolution. Different looking might have the same common ancestry by divergent evolution. So you need to look at their DNA clearly. And the pentadecate limbs of mammals, birds, amphibians, and reptiles, they are completely different looking, right? But they come from the same ancestry. So it is an example of divergent or convergent evolution? Yes, divergent evolution. Okay. Next one we talk about is a concept of speciation, very important. Okay, Darwin said we come from the same ancestry. Okay. Why there are so many species, different species on the earth? Okay, because of the process of speciation. Speciation is the splitting of pre-existing species into different species. Okay. Speciation is the only way for new species to appear. This by definition. We said that new species appear, speciation occurs. Okay, and speciation increases number of total number of species on Earth. Okay? It is the opposite to extinction. Okay, extinction decreases total number of species on Earth. Okay, and we said that gradual evolutionary change in a species is not species. We'll talk about it later. Gradual or abrupt. And a condition for speciation. For example, speciation means new species, right? So there must be a variation. Okay? If there's no variation, there's no new species, right? There must be some variation in the species or the population. Okay, and then for some reason, some of this variation does not survive. Okay, some of them survive, so they need to have some competition among this variation. So it must sometimes the offspring are overproduced, not enough resources from the environment to support them all, so they compete with each other, and the one with variation more adaptive to the environment survive. Okay? So the better adapted individual survive and becomes a new species, and we call it a speciation. So two requirement: variation, competition, maybe due to over reproduction. Okay. Okay, speciation resulted from three types of natural selection. Three types. Okay, we'll learn that later. Okay, reproductive isolation. Okay, and then separate population, gradual divergence, and lots of different ways. We'll talk about them one by one. First, reproductive isolation is a source of isolation. Okay, one kind of isolation, and this isolation split into three minor types. Also, okay, reproductive isolation prohibit the interbreeding of population. Okay, so that the population do not interbreed each other, so the gene pool are split into different species. So gradually they have different genes, or different behavior, different characteristics, different phenotype. Okay, so speciation occurs. But why they don't interbreed? There are three reasons. Okay, we mean three types of reproductive isolation: temporal, behavioral, and geographic. Temporal means, for example, the different population will be produced at different times. Okay, one population in the summer, the other in the winter. Okay, so they don't interbreed. Okay, and maybe they have a different behavior when they are interbreed. Okay, and then they have mismatch and mating trait, so prevent them from mating. Okay, different population, or they have different favorable characteristics from different point of view for mating. Okay, and also maybe they are separated by river, mountain, so they cannot meet and interbreed separate before they are together. Now the river come out because of flooding. Okay, maybe because of some tectonic movement. Okay, mountain came out. Okay, so remember three things: isolation, temporal, behavioral, geographical, all are isolation from interbreeding. Okay. So reproduction isolation, okay, may also come from a polybody. We'll talk about it later. Polybody and make it an abrupt isolation and an example, okay. And prolonged reproduction isolation leads to speciation, okay. So the gene pool separates for a long time, so specific characteristic appear and new species appear. And evolution from domain, okay. Gene pool contains all genes with all else, okay. It is a concept from common ancestry again, okay. But when due to a reproductive isolation, the population from the same domain face a different environment. Okay. So this population has a different chance of L frequency. One of the population have one L more frequency, and the other has another L. Else mean a characteristic, okay, phenotype, okay. So at last they become a different species, okay. Although they share the same gene pool at first, okay, but the expression of the genes are different, okay, due to the environment. And differential selection is another concept, okay. For example, bonobos and chimpanzee. Long time ago in North in America, okay, in the Congo River, okay, and bonobo and chimpanzee are live together. But suddenly the bonobos cross the river, and flooding appears, and the river becomes so big that the bonobo can't go back, can't cross us back. So they are separated from chimpanzee forever. And then because of this geographical separation, okay, they becomes differences, and they evolve into different species, even different name is bonobo, and this is a chimpanzee, okay, and we call this divergence a differential selection, not natural selection, not natural, differential. Okay, next one is additional higher level, some reflection, more deep thinking about the previous concept. For example, we have a concept called sympatric and allopatric specification. It is for reproductive isolation. Reproductive isolation can be separated into these two. Okay, both are symmetric and allopatric speciation come from the same adjusted population. Okay, in allopatric speciation, the groups evolve into separate species due to geographical separation. Okay, reproductive isolation occurs. Okay, genes are not shared among different groups. Okay, this is important. Genes are not shared. Okay, but in a symmetric speciation, the group evolves into separate species, but without geographical separation. Okay, the genes can still share amongst these groups, but not so perfectly. Okay, if they can share perfectly, then can't be as different species. Okay, for example, go back to the geographical example, river example. Okay? For the river appears, okay, to the terrestrial animals that cannot cross the river, so allopatric species occurs for them. Okay, but for the birds can fly across the river. So it is a sympatric species occurs. They are living in a different environment, but they can move across each other, and then the birds can fly, and then the birds genes are still a share among them. Okay, so remember allopatric, no sharing of genes. Okay, sympatric still have sharing of genes, although the population live in a different environment. That's not geographically separated. Okay, that another concept is called adaptive radiation. Adaptive radiation is a source of biodiversity. Okay, it's related to natural evolution. Okay, adaptive radiation allows closely related species to coexist without competing. Okay, thereby increasing biodiversity in an ecosystem. For example, homologous structure are similar structure with common features found in animals. So homologous structure is an example of adaptive radiation. Both of all the fish, all the um, reptiles, mammals exist right in the world. Okay, but they have a shared homologous structure, but a little bit different because of adaptive radiation. Okay, full adaptive radiation that the same structure of the common ancestry modified to the different homologous structure for different function in animals. So adaptive radiation is an evidence of evolution. For example, antenna of insect and then pentattack limbs. Okay, and all are example of homologous structure, and it is an example of adaptive radiation. Adaptive radiation means starting from the same point, just like radiation, starting from the same ancestry because of different environmental situations, so it's spread out. Okay, the structure spread out into different, a little bit different looking. Okay, different structure. Okay, different variation. So we call it due to adaptation to different environments. So we call it adaptive radiation. Okay. For example, another example in the polluted area, okay, industrial area polluted, okay, environment is very dark, okay, so the dark skin organism is favored. So the dark insects are favored. Okay, so the dark insects are more found more frequently in polluted area, and we call it adaptive radiation. Okay, and mixing of else between species. This is a important concept. Okay, so else mixing within species, right? The same species, everyone know it. Okay, but due to hybridization and sterility, okay, and then of the hybrid. Okay, so the sharing of L's between or amongst different species are prohibited. Okay, prohibited. For example, it's a barrier to hybridization. For example, different species, animal different courtship behaviors. Okay, so they don't mate with other species. Okay, so we call it behavioral isolation. Okay. For example, maybe it's due to sterility. Okay, milk is a hybrid of donkey and a horse. Okay, but they are infertile, sterile. So mixing of L's cannot pass to the next generation. So the different reason. Okay. And another concept is between abrupt speciation and gradual speciation. Abrupt speciation means that the speciation happens suddenly. Okay. Maybe it's due to hybridization or due to polypody. Okay, we'll talk about it later. It's a good example. And there are two models, okay, gradualism and punctual equilibrium. Two models, one favor gradual speciation, one favor abrupt speciation. For gradualism, of course, gradual speciation, they said that the graduation is accumulation, slowly spread out into different speciation. But then for the punctual equilibrium, they said that there's long time of equilibrium, low change, so that suddenly there's a rapid speciation and split out into another species. Okay, so the punctual equilibrium means there's a long time of nothing change, and the change came suddenly as a rapid speciation. So remember these two models, different looking of the diagram. Okay, tree-like is gradualism. Okay, some step-like is punctual equilibrium. It means the abrupt speciation. What's the example? For the gradual divergence, everyone know, okay, there are different population in the world, different the same kind of tiger in the world, okay, they have different population, they have a little bit different characteristic, right? And if this characteristic further develop, okay, they may becomes a different species, okay, although they are the same tiger, okay. So we call it a gradual divergence. It is quite natural, right? Because they have different environment facing. So gradual divergence is easy to understand, very natural. Okay. In IBDP, when you call outline, okay, the questioning word is outline. You need to answer it with description and one example. For example, you talk about directional, and then you have to talk about is a tall giraffe, right? Abrupt, and then you talk about the hummingbird, right? Remember one example for that, okay? And for the abrupt speciation is by polypody, okay? For example, for some plants, okay, flowering plants, they can have different genes, okay, 3N, 4N, 5N, or 8N. You know only the even N is a fertile, okay, can give birth of another offspring, okay. So 3N can survive, 5N can survive, 4N, 8N can survive, okay. And how can this different and different polypody happens? Because of one feature, we call it polypody promotes species diversification. Okay, new species are formed by a polypody. Okay, they are different ends. Okay, they mix together, and then new ends can appear. Okay, for example, a triploid. Okay, because it is an odd number, cannot carry out meiosis, so it is infertile. But a tetraploid can carry out. Okay, 4N, 6N, 8Ns can do it. Okay, and they mix together, and then they will form a different and different polypody. Of course, is different species. Okay, but the last one is important. Why it is abrupt? Okay, maybe the newer polypody may have different polypody number than with the parents. Okay, if this new species made interbreed with the parents, then the offspring may be infertile due to the appearance of the odd number. Okay, so this new polypody becomes immediately separating from the parents. Okay, isolation. Okay, due to infertile. Okay, okay, so it is immediate speciation in just one generation. For example, I should say 4N. Okay, 4N causes a 4N. Okay, but for some reason disjunction. Okay, so becomes 2N mixed with 4N, so becomes 6N. Okay, and the 6N is immediately separated from the 4n parents, because if they mate, 5n will appear and it will become infertile. So the polyploidy is a good model to show abrupt speciation. It is this is an explanation. Okay, 3n, 4n, and 5n. Long disjunction during meiosis lead to a diploid gamete. Okay, so when the diploid and haploid fuse together, a triploid appears and then infertile. Okay, this is the concept of why polyploidy appears by long disjunction, and then why polyploidy make a new species that is isolated from the previous species, because if they interbreed, infertile offspring will appear. Okay, will give out. Oh, thank you. Do you understand speciation more and evaluation more? I think it's very funny when I share, when I prepare this parts. Okay, I learn a lot too. Okay, so remember, speciation and lots of different kind of speciation. It is part of the evaluation. Next section is very funny too. Evaluation is really a good theory to explain the world, and it's also a very funny theory for us to learn to expand our knowledge of biology. If you like our share, remember, subscribe and share with your friends. Okay, see you next week for Biology Sunday. Bye bye.